Is it possible to retire in 10 years with absolutely no savings? When you think of the very traditional approach, it is saving, 10, 15% of your income over 40 years to get the compounding. Now, of course, this really risk appropriate with investments, tax deferred accounts, tax advantage accounts, and of course, stopping to work at 65, which then moved to 67, which now is going to 69, which is kind of crazy to think that Social Security is really pushing there. But when you start looking at the Social Security benefits, they are really slated to replace 40% of your income. So it's not a huge chunk that we're getting out of Social Security, but is it really possible within 10 years to start? And of course, the answer is yes, but it is going to come with a grain of salt because you have to be incredibly difficult when you have a short runway before retirement. So let's even say you're 40 looking to go into 50, you're 50 to 60, 10 years, you're 55 getting ready for 65 or retirement age. We're going to be going through the step-by-step guide and having 10 years to retirement and how we can actually get there. And the first one is making the commitment. The first step to really preparing for retirement is, what is it going to look like? What is retirement going to look like to you? What are you going to compromise when it comes to your financial being right now to offset in what the process is going to look like in retirement? This, of course, is going to be very important to, hey, if I want to have a lot of money and I want to travel a lot, probably not going to be the possibility in the next 10 years because we are committed to making and really hitting that timeline of that 10-year retirement. When it comes to number two, cutting your costs. This, of course, you have to drastically kind of slash everything. This is cutting any living expenses. This is really giving up everything, knowing that the return is going to be a retirement. When you start looking at a lot of different things, even now during COVID or after COVID, people are not driving like they used to. We're not seeing as much travel as you used to. So trying to even cut your costs to the point where if you're living on 40, 50, 60, let's say even 75% of your income, try it right now. If you have a 10-year runway to retirement, cutting your costs, reducing some of your expenses, and trying to put away, let's say 25% of the income or even less, depending, and really feel what it's going to feel like in retirement. I know you're not going to have the Social Security income, but overall, you can kind of gameplay it with what you're spending, where the money is, and you might quickly realize that you have to either cut a lot more costs or it might not work with that 10-year retirement plan to actually get this done. Third one is saving a majority of your income. When we start looking this is the challenge. Starting with probably 50, 60, maybe even 70% of your income. For a majority of people, there's absolutely no way to do this. But if you're really slashing your expenses and going as far as looking for lower areas to live, downsizing your house, really cutting. Now, of course, with a very small runway, you have to be super aggressive with this, and that's the reason. Start maxing out all of your 401ks, max out your IRAs, max out pretty much anything you can to supercharge that retirement, because again, we only have a 10-year runway when it comes to this. Any of the extra cash is going to go right into a brokerage account if you have any. And honestly, with a plan like this to retire in 10 years, you have to make sure you have no debt. Debt, of course, is going to eat up a majority of Social Security. It's going to eat up a lot of those retirement savings that you have. And number four, we get into saving wisely. Now, this, of course, when you start looking at the runway of the 10-year time frame, S&P 500 is still a good investment when you're looking at a 10% annual growth. That means everything you're putting in there usually doubles about 7 years based on kind of the compounding factor. And of course, you don't want to go super risky because essentially you could be rolling the dice with your retirement and you might not get there if you are starting to put something that has a much higher risk. Now, you also had to keep in mind that in 2022, S&P 500 lost about 20%. NASDAQ even fell even more. But when you start looking at a 10-year investing, let's say 45K a year, you could possibly have around 700K when you get to retirement if you can put away that 45K, again, getting for retirement. Now, this is the interesting part. Number five is investing for income. This, of course, is your dividend paying portfolio, whether it is the HD, the VYM, ETFs, or income that is going to be generated from stocks. This is going to be the supplement. Now, we've talked about this before. If you're putting away that 45K for 10 years, in the 10 years, you have about 700K, meaning that you can get around $21,000 a year. That is going to be just from a dividend stock paying around 3%. So investing for income. And when you're starting this 10-year phase before retirement, you're going to be investing for growth. You want to grow it kind of as high, kind of as fast as you can, with mitigating your risk and really not taking a ton. Like I said, cryptocurrency, real estate, stuff like that might be a little bit more risky. But of course, when you start getting through here and really knocking this out, If you can get 700,000 in there, that's 21K a year that you can pull without actually touching it. You're going to get 21K a year that is just literally coming off dividends that you're getting in this portfolio, which is huge. And of course, if we already eliminated our debt, we've already invested, the 10-year runway is there. You're getting 21K a year in supplement with Social Security. So you're pulling in about 50 G's a year, which again, for most retirees is pretty average. Now, a lot of people that we see when it comes into retirement, they are only sitting on really Social Security. That is what I see from a lot of individuals that I work with. It is literally Social Security and only Social Security. There is no 401k, there's no IRAs, there's no pensions. There is nothing but the Social Security, which of course can be incredibly difficult when things get very expensive. Now, of course, there can be some downsides when it comes to really the strategy and having the financial independence is, of course, you're living a very, very short runway in a very, very locked down, really financial situation. It has to be very tight spending, very tight controls. But again, you have to put it in perspective and really think if you do want to retire within those 10 years, what exactly is it going to look like? It might mean, putting your travel, putting your golfing, putting the things you enjoy, the things you love, not doing the cruises, not going on vacation for the 10 years. Because of course, if you'd save for the last 40, you'd be pretty good. And of course, you have to think of the big picture. If there is illness, accidents, disability, if there's anything else that could really derail the 10-year investment strategy or the 10-year retirement strategy, but you could definitely do that. So people have done this, and we know, looking at the FIRE movement, looking at a couple different ways, that if you really want to do frugal, if you want to be, really frugal, if you want to be really mindful of the money that you have, you can cut a lot of costs, you can retire. And honestly, putting everything in there, when you think about the FIRE movement, it is really the financial independence of putting an absorbent amount into retirement accounts, into all of these accounts that you can stack up your money and really double it faster and faster and faster because you're making insane contributions. I actually know an individual that is doing just this, and he is putting roughly 50% of his income. So half of his income is going into investment accounts, which again is kind of crazy. But when you think about cutting costs on one side, investing a lot of money on the other side, you are also going to need enough income for the rest of your life. So think about it. If you're retiring at 65, you're going to live to 85, 87, 90. So you're going to have a 25-year period where not only are you drawing Social Security, but you're also going to have a secondary income to supplement Social Security. That way you can live and be happy in retirement. And of course, it is really based on what retirement means to you. This is a big question that you always have to keep in mind, where if you want to live, the ease and luxury, if you want to travel during retirement, if you want to, fill up that bucket list, a lot of times it's going to cost money. 10-year retirement plan with no savings. Starting today, you could definitely do it. It's just really about knocking it out and really buckling down on any expenses you have. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.